Rainwater dripped from Sandra's hair onto the marble floor. Her tattered brown gown clung to her skin. She stood barefoot in the bright living room, shaking. The chandelier above her sparkled like stars. She lifted her right hand, pointed at a big framed photo on the wall, and whispered, "Sir, who is this?" Henry froze. He had just set down his car keys. Now his eyes followed her finger to the picture. A young woman with a calm smile and bright eyes, Monica, in a blue dress under a jacaranda tree. For years, that photo was his reminder of a promise he never kept. "Why are you asking?" Henry said, voice low. Sandra's lips trembled. Because she is my mother, my late mother." The glass in Henry's hand slipped and hit the table with a dull sound. "What did you say?" he asked. "My mother," Sandra repeated, eyes filling with tears. "Her name is Monica." And the room went quiet. So quiet Henry could hear the rain sliding off the roof. Earlier that evening, the city was wet and grey. Traffic crawled. Under the bridge, where shadows gathered like cold hands, Henry saw her, curled up, head on her knees, shivering. He was driving home from Victoria Island after a long day. His driver had the heater on. The wipers made a soft beat, but the sight under the bridge made Henry tap the driver's shoulder. "Stop," he said. He stepped out with his umbrella. "Hello," he said gently. "Are you okay?" The girl flinched and pressed herself to the concrete pillar. Her hair was soaked and scattered across her face. She looked no older than 19. "I won't hurt you," Henry said. "I promise. I'm here to help." She looked up, eyes wide and scared. "People say that," she whispered. "Then they change." "I won't," Henry said. He took off his jacket and held it out. "Please, you're shaking." She stared at the jacket a long moment. Then she reached, small fingers careful, and put it on. Warmth made her breathe a little easier. "What's your name?" Henry asked. "Sandra," she said. "I'm Henry." He didn't add billionaire. He never liked that word. Money was loud. He liked quiet. The rain pushed harder. A danfo splashed water near their feet. Somewhere a hawker shouted about meat pies. Henry glanced at the girl's bare feet, red from the cold pavement. It hurt to look. "Come," he said softly. "Let's get you dry. You can eat. You can rest. No one will bother you." Sandra's eyes searched his face. He looked steady, like someone used to giving and keeping his word. She nodded. The ride was mostly quiet. The driver turned up the heat. Sandra watched water race down the window. Henry watched the road and tried not to think of the picture on his living room wall. He had 2 failed marriages behind him, no children, and a heart he kept busy with work so it wouldn't feel empty. Some nights the emptiness won. They passed toll lights and bright billboards. When the car rolled into his compound, the tall black gate opened like a slow breath. Staff hurried to the door, surprised to see their boss carrying a soaked girl in his jacket. Inside, everything was warm and bright. Cream walls, soft rugs, the faint scent of lemon polish. Henry helped Sandra stand in the living room. She turned, taking in the tall curtains, the clean couches, the marble shining. Then she saw the photo. Her body went still. She pointed. "Sir, who is this?" Henry followed her gaze. Monica, her steady eyes, the blue dress, the tree, a memory like sunlight after rain. "Why are you asking?" he said again, more careful this time. "Because she is my mother," Sandra whispered. "She died 3 years ago." Shock landed in Henry's chest like a heavy stone. His mind ran to a younger time, university days in Nsuka, shared noodles, whispered dreams, a promise ring, a plan. Graduation, then a call from overseas. His parents wanted him out of Nigeria at once. 10 years, 10 whole years. He had searched when he came back, then searched some more. He never found her. "Do you know her?" Sandra asked, voice barely there. Henry swallowed. "We were together in university," he said. "We were supposed to marry. After graduation, I was sent abroad. I lost contact with her. I never saw her again." Sandra's knees wobbled. Henry snapped out of his shock. "Please," he said, turning to a waiting staff member, "bring a towel, prepare a guest room, find warm pajamas, and food, hot food." He faced Sandra. "You're safe here. Take a shower. Eat. Then, Please meet me in the study. We'll talk. Sandra nodded. She looked one more time at her mother's face and followed a maid down the hallway. Later, the house felt like a softer place. Rain slowed to a whisper outside. Sandra walked into the study, wearing clean pajamas. Her hair was neatly packed in a bun. Her face looked younger without the dirt and rain. Henry stood by the bookshelf, hands in his pockets, eyes careful. "Please, sit," he said. She sat on the edge of a chair, hands folded. The study was lined with books and quiet lamps. A framed certificate from years ago sat next to the velvet ring box he never opened. "Tell me about your mother," Henry said. Sandra took a breath. "Her name was Monica," she said. "She was kind and brave. She told me she met my father in university. She said they loved each other. But after she got pregnant, she couldn't find him to tell him. She looked. She asked old friends. She never found him." Sandra's voice shook. "She was later diagnosed with a brain tumor. We had no money for surgery. She tried to work anyway, so I could finish high school. She made me read every night. But the sickness won. She died 3 years ago." Tears slipped down her cheeks. She wiped them and tried to smile. "I finished high school as best student. But there was no family, no one to help. I ended up on the street." Henry sat, elbows on his knees, eyes wet. "How old are you, Sandra?" 19. "What month is your birthday?" "November," she said. "November 25th. Henry stared at the floor. January. The last time he and Monica saw each other was the first week of January, after graduation, before his parents forced him onto that plane. He whispered to himself, "It adds up." He looked up. "Sandra, I believe you, I do. But I want us to be sure. Tomorrow morning my private doctor will come here. We'll do a DNA test. Whatever the result says, listen to me." His voice broke, then steadied. "I will be here for you, no matter what." Sandra stared at him. Hope moved across her face like sunrise. "Thank you," she said, almost too soft to hear. Henry pulled out his phone and called, "Doctor, please." "First thing in the morning." He hung up and stood. "Eat. Rest," he said. "You've been brave for so long." Sandra rose. At the door, she turned back. "Sir, can I sleep in the room near the picture?" Henry nodded, throat tight. "Of course." She left. The study hummed in quiet. Henry walked to the shelf and picked up the velvet ring box, the one he had kept all these years. He set it down, hands shaking. His phone buzzed again. It was his driver, but the voice that followed belonged to the chief guard at the gate. "Sir," the guard said, sounding uneasy, "someone is at the gate asking to see you. A woman. She says she knows the name on that old picture. Monica." Henry's heart kicked. "Who is she?" "She didn't say, sir, only that you will want to hear what she knows. And she says it can't wait till morning." Henry glanced toward the hallway where Sandra had gone, then back at the ring box, then to the rain-silvered window. "Bring her in," he said. The line clicked off. Henry stepped into the brightly lit corridor, the house suddenly full of echo and questions. He heard soft footsteps coming down the stairs, someone approaching the study door. He turned as the handle began to turn. The study door opened slowly, and Henry felt his breath catch. But it wasn't the mysterious woman from the gate. It was Sandra. She stood there in her soft pajamas, eyes still swollen from crying, hands folded in front of her. "Sir, I couldn't sleep," she said quietly. "The rain stopped, but my heart didn't." Henry forced a calm breath. "Sandra," he rose gently, "it's okay. You're safe here." She took a step inside, then paused. "Someone walked past my door," she whispered. "I heard footsteps. Who is here?" Henry hesitated. He didn't want to frighten her. The girl had already carried more fear in one night than most people faced in a lifetime. "Someone came to see me. I don't know who yet," he said softly. "Stay in your room, all right? I'll handle it." But Sandra shook her head. "Please, can I stay close? I don't want to be alone." Henry looked at her, so fragile, so brave, and nodded. "Stay behind me." He guided her to the living room. The lights glowed warm against the tall walls. Shadows sat quietly in the corners. Sandra's eyes darted around, nervous, fingers twisting at the hem of her sleeve. The main door opened. A woman stepped inside. She looked about 50, dark-skinned, with tired but sharp eyes. She wore an old wrapper and a brown coat, the kind worn by someone who had walked a long way under the rain. She held a nylon bag close to her chest. She didn't greet. She didn't smile. She just stood there, staring at Sandra. Henry cleared his throat. "Madam, I was told you asked to see me. You said you knew Monica." The woman's eyes grew wet. "Yes," she whispered, voice cracking. "I knew Monica very well." Sandra's lips parted, confused. Henry studied the woman. "Who are you to her?" The woman stepped forward, one slow step at a time, her gaze locked on Sandra. You look exactly like her," she said, tears slipping down her face. "Same nose, same eyes, same way she tilted her head when she was scared." Sandra froze. Henry stepped slightly in front of her. "Madam, please, explain yourself." The woman took a shaky breath. "My name is Auntie Grace," she said. "I was Monica's closest friend in university. I knew everything about her. Everything." Sandra's fingers tightened on Henry's sleeve. Auntie Grace continued, voice trembling. "When Monica got pregnant in her final year, she told me. She told me everything. She said the father was a good man, but he vanished. She thought he left her. She tried to find him. She begged me to help. But no one knew where he went." Henry closed his eyes in pain. Auntie Grace pressed on. "After school, Monica got weaker. She carried the pregnancy alone. She worked multiple jobs until she collapsed one afternoon. When she finally gave birth, she held the baby, and she cried so much." Sandra wiped her face. "She named the baby after her grandmother," Auntie Grace said. Sandra's legs nearly gave way. Henry caught her arm. "Easy, easy, my dear." But Auntie Grace wasn't finished. "Monica never stopped searching," she said, "even when she got sick, even when she could barely walk, even when people told her to give up. She held onto the father's name like it was her last breath." Her voice softened. "She never hated him. She only wished he knew." Henry's throat tightened painfully. Why didn't she reach me?" he asked, voice shaking. "Why couldn't she find me?" Auntie Grace looked at him with a sad, almost accusing expression. "She didn't know your family took you abroad. She thought you abandoned her. Your parents blocked everyone from contacting you. We tried, sir, many times. Emails, phone calls, letters. We even visited your family house. They said you didn't want to be bothered." Henry stumbled back. It felt like a knife turned in his chest. His voice came out thin. "My parents did that." Auntie Grace nodded sadly. "They said Monica wasn't good enough for you, that you needed a better future. They made sure she never found you." Sandra gasped. Henry pressed a hand to his forehead, trembling. The truth hit him like a storm. Monica hadn't given up. She had been blocked, hidden, pushed away from him like she was nothing. A tear fell down his cheek. Auntie Grace reached into her nylon bag and pulled out a small envelope. "This is from Monica. She gave it to me before she died. She told me to give it to her daughter, but I didn't know where Sandra was. I searched for years." She looked at Sandra with broken relief. "I only found you today because someone told me a girl who looked like Monica was seen under the bridge." Sandra stepped forward slowly, hands shaking. "The letter is for me." "For you," Auntie Grace whispered. "From your mother." She extended the envelope. Sandra stared at it as if it were a living thing. The room held its breath. Her fingers touched the paper, and Henry suddenly stepped forward. "Wait," he said sharply. Sandra froze. Auntie Grace stiffened. Henry's voice shook, but not with fear, with something dark, heavy, and rising inside him. "Before Sandra opens that letter," he said, eyes locked on Auntie Grace, "there is something I must know." His jaw tightened. "What else did my parents hide from me?" The room went silent, heavy, expectant, dangerous. Auntie Grace looked away. Sandra clutched the envelope. The clock on the wall ticked once, then twice, and Auntie Grace whispered, "There is something else, sir. Something you were never supposed to find out." The living room felt colder than the rain outside. Sandra clutched the unopened letter to her chest. Henry stood stiff, his jaw locked, his breathing heavy. Auntie Grace looked like someone preparing to dig up a grave. Henry took one slow step forward. "What else did my parents hide from me?" he asked again, voice raw, sharp, and shaking. Auntie Grace hesitated. "Madam," Henry said again, quieter this time, but far more dangerous. "You said there is something I was never supposed to find out. Tell me." Auntie Grace covered her mouth with her palm, as if the words burned her tongue. Sandra watched her with wide eyes, afraid to blink. Finally, Auntie Grace lowered her hand. "Sir, before Monica died, she told me something. Something she begged me to keep a secret unless I ever found her daughter." Henry's eyebrows drew together. "Keep what secret?" Auntie Grace took a breath, then spoke slowly. "When Monica realized she might die, she told me the truth. Sandra wasn't her only pregnancy." Sandra's heart stumbled. Henry blinked. I don't understand." Auntie Grace's eyes filled with tears. "Monica carried twins, sir." Silence exploded across the room. Sandra gasped. Henry staggered back, hitting the edge of the marble counter. "Twins," Sandra whispered, voice shaking. "You mean I have a brother or sister?" Auntie Grace nodded slowly. Henry's voice cracked. Where is the other child?" Auntie Grace's expression darkened. "That is the part your parents hid from you. Monica suffered terribly during childbirth. She was unconscious for hours. When she woke up, she only found one baby beside her." Sandra's hand flew to her mouth. "Monica asked where the second baby was," Auntie Grace continued, "but the nurses said the child had been taken to a safer ward because the hospital needed space. She never saw that child again." Henry shook his head violently. No, that doesn't make sense. Why would a nurse take one baby and not return them? Why?" Auntie Grace raised a trembling hand. "Because someone paid for it to happen." The room stopped breathing. Henry stared at her, face pale. "Paid for? Are you saying my parents—" "Yes," Auntie Grace whispered. "They paid the hospital to take the second baby away." Sandra let out a small cry. Henry stepped back as if hit. "Why would they do that? Why?" Auntie Grace wiped her face. "Monica told me she heard the nurses talking. They said your parents wanted to erase the problem completely. They didn't want any trace of her. They thought if Monica had 2 children, you might go back to look for her. But if she had only one, they believed she would be too weak, too overwhelmed to search for you again." Henry pressed both hands on his head, pacing in disbelief. "This can't be real," he whispered. "My parents? No, they were strict, yes. Controlling, yes. But this? They wouldn't do this." He stopped. But the doubt in his eyes said he wasn't sure anymore. Sandra went to him and held his arm gently. "Sir, I think you need to sit." But Henry shook his head. "Where is the second child now? Alive? Dead? Where, Auntie Grace?" Auntie Grace swallowed painfully. "I don't know." A sharp, broken sound escaped Henry's throat. He turned away from them, shoulders shaking. "I was robbed," he whispered. "Robbed of Monica. Robbed of my children. Robbed of 19 years. Sandra stepped closer, voice soft. "Sir, no matter what happened then, you found me now." He looked at her with the eyes of a man fighting to breathe. "But I didn't find the other one," he said. "And I must." Auntie Grace sniffed. "There is one more thing." Henry's head snapped toward her. Sandra held her breath. Auntie Grace reached into her nylon bag again and pulled out a folded hospital form. "This paper was kept hidden in the hospital archives," she said. "A nurse who loved Monica sneaked it out and gave it to me years later. She begged me to keep it safe." Henry took the paper with shaking hands. It was old, yellowed, torn at the edges. At the top was the name Monica Okafor, delivery record. But what sent Henry's heart crashing was the line under it. Number of live births. 2. He touched the paper like it was made of fire. Sandra covered her mouth. "It's real. All of it is real." Henry sank slowly into the nearest chair. For a long moment he said nothing. His hands trembled. His breath shook. Then he whispered, "I need answers." He looked up, eyes burning. "Auntie Grace, tell me everything Monica told you, every detail, every name, every place, every nurse, every word." Auntie Grace nodded. "I will." But, sir, she hesitated, looking at Sandra. There's something else, she said. Something she wanted Sandra to know only when she grew older. Sandra blinked. Another secret. Auntie Grace hesitated. She said, her voice broke, that if she didn't survive, she wanted her children to know the truth. What truth? Sandra asked, stepping forward. Auntie Grace opened her mouth, but before a single word came out, someone knocked loudly at the front door. Henry flinched. Sandra jumped. Auntie Grace froze. The knock came again, harder this time. The guard shouted from outside, "Sir, it's urgent." Henry's heart raced. What is it? Sir, there is someone at the gate claiming to be a relative of Monica. Sandra's legs weakened. Henry stood up fast. Auntie Grace dropped the nylon bag. Henry whispered, stunned. A relative? Sandra whispered back, voice shaking. Or the missing twin. The banging on the front door did not stop. Sandra clutched the letter to her chest, eyes wide with fear. Auntie Grace froze where she stood. Henry's heart slammed against his ribs like a drum. Sir, the chief guard shouted again from outside. He insists he must see you. He says it's about Monica. Henry shot a look at Sandra. She looked back at him, frightened, shaking, overwhelmed, but she nodded. She wanted answers too. Stay behind me, Henry whispered. Sandra obeyed, her fingers curled around his sleeve. Auntie Grace followed silently. Henry moved to the front door and slowly twisted the handle. The night breeze rushed in. Standing at the gate was a young man, about 19 or 20, his clothes soaked from the rain, his hair dripping, his breathing fast. Two guards held him by the arms, but not roughly, more like they were unsure if he was a threat or just desperate. The boy lifted his head, and Sandra's breath left her chest. He looked just like her, same eyes. Same nose, same eyebrows, same frightened expression. If she were a mirror, the reflection would be him. The boy stared back at her, stunned, then whispered, Sandra. Sandra's knees wobbled. Henry caught her before she collapsed. The boy pushed forward, almost breaking free from the guards. Sandra, it's me, Samuel. Samuel, the missing twin. Sandra covered her mouth as tears poured down her face. Sam, you're alive. He nodded quickly, tears mixing with the rain. I've been looking for you for years. Henry stared at the boy as if time had stopped. Wait, Samuel, you know her? Sam nodded. I knew her name. I knew I had a twin. Mama told me before she died. Henry stumbled back, eyes wide. But how are you alive? How did you survive? Where have you been? Sam swallowed hard. It's a long story. But the family that took me, Auntie Grace let out a painful cry. They took you. So it's true. Monica wasn't imagining it. Sam nodded again, breathing shakily. I grew up with a couple who said they found me abandoned. But when I got older, I found Mama's old hospital bracelet in a box. She hid it before she died. It had her name on it. Sandra broke into quiet sobs. Sam continued, I searched for information online. I asked people. I followed any trace I could find. Someone told me a girl who looked exactly like me was seen under the bridge today. I rushed there, but she was gone. Sandra stepped forward slowly, whispering, Henry, I don't understand. If Sam was taken, then someone knew where he was. Henry felt his throat close. His parents. The realization hit him with painful force. His voice dropped to a whisper. Sam, did the family ever say who gave you to them? Sam nodded carefully. They said, a wealthy couple paid them to care for me. They never told me their names, but I saw a picture once, hidden under a drawer. It was a man and woman. They looked rich, strict, cold. Henry's heart hammered. Do you remember their faces? He asked. Sam nodded slowly. I do. Henry walked into his study, grabbed a frame from an upper shelf and returned. Sam, look carefully. Is this them? He held out a picture of his late parents. Sam looked at it. His eyes widened, his breath caught, his lips parted. That's them, he whispered. They're the ones who took me. Sandra gasped. Auntie Grace closed her eyes in grief, and Henry went pale. He dropped the photo frame. It shattered on the marble floor. "My parents stole my child," he whispered. "They took you away from Monica. They destroyed her life. They destroyed your life. Sandra's life. Mine." Tears slid down Henry's face. He pressed a hand to his mouth and shook. Sam stepped forward, voice soft. "I didn't come here to blame anyone. I only wanted to find my sister and know the truth." Sandra moved toward him, then stopped, unsure, trembling. Sam held out a hand. "Sandra," he said softly, "I'm your brother." Sandra ran into his arms. They held each other tightly, crying, shaking, clinging like two halves finally fitting together after 19 years apart. It was a moment that felt too big for the room. Henry watched with trembling lips, tears pouring freely down his face. "My children," he whispered. "Both of you, both of you." He sank onto a chair, covering his face. A lifetime of guilt, confusion, heartbreak, and stolen years crashed into him. Auntie Grace knelt beside him. "Sir," she whispered, "Monica loved you till her last breath. She never blamed you. She believed fate would bring your children back to where they belonged." Henry lowered his hands, and for the first time in 19 years, he truly believed her. But then Sam suddenly stiffened. Sandra felt him tremble. "Sam? What's wrong?" Sam swallowed, eyes darting toward the door. "I didn't come alone." Henry stood up fast. "What do you mean?" Sam stepped back, fear spreading across his face. "The people who raised me, they saw me taking the hospital bracelet. They followed me. They don't want the truth out. They don't want me to find you." Outside, car tires screeched. A black van stopped at the gate. Voices shouted. Sandra grabbed Henry's arm. Henry's heart slammed in his chest. Sam whispered, terrified, "They're here." The screech of tires tore through the silence of the compound. A black van stopped sharply outside the gate. Doors slammed. Voices barked orders. Footsteps pounded toward the entrance like thunder. Sandra clung to Sam's arm. Sam's breathing turned fast, shallow, terrified. Henry stepped forward immediately, pulling both twins behind him. "No one touches my children," he said, voice deep and shaking with years of buried anger. The guards rushed to block the approaching men, but the leader, broad-shouldered, sharp-eyed, dressed in a dark jacket, lifted his hand. "Stand aside," he commanded. "That boy stole from us." Sam flinched. Henry stepped closer to the man. "Who are you?" "I'm the one who took care of that boy for 19 years, the man shouted. "He belongs with us." "No," Henry said sharply. "He belongs with his family." The man scoffed. "Family. His mother died. And you—" He pointed at Henry. "Your own parents gave him to us to raise. We spent money. We fed him. We paid school fees. We deserve something in return." Sandra felt her stomach twist. Auntie Grace stepped forward. "What do you mean, something in return?" The man smirked. "Oh, come on. You think we raised that boy out of kindness? Your precious Monica couldn't pay hospital bills. That wealthy couple—" He nodded at Henry. "Paid us to take the boy and keep it quiet. They said the mother wasn't to know. They said the father didn't care." Henry's face fell like a crumbling wall. "They lied," Henry said quietly. "My parents lied to you, and to me, and to Monica. And you helped them steal my son." The man stepped closer, threateningly. "We did what we were paid to do, and now we want compensation. That boy is our investment." "Stop talking about me like I'm property," Sam snapped, voice shaking but loud. "You didn't raise me, you used me." The man's eyes narrowed. "Without us, you would have died." "And without you," Sam said, stepping in front of Sandra, "I would have known my mother before she died. I would have known I had a father, a twin sister, a family." The man laughed coldly. "We don't care about that. Bring him. We're leaving." Guards moved in. Henry's voice exploded. "No one touches my child." The guards froze. Even the man paused. Something in Henry's voice, raw, broken but stronger than steel, made the room shift. He stepped forward until he stood nose to nose with the man. "You took him from his mother," Henry whispered. "You took 19 years from me, from them. And you think you'll take another second?" The man swallowed. Henry continued, each word trembling with truth. "You will not take him. You will not threaten him. You will not stand on my property and talk about money when what you stole was a life." The man glared. We will return with police. Sandra stepped forward, fire rising in her chest. No, you will return with apologies. Because the truth is out now, Auntie Grace added sharply, and if you go to the police, the first thing they'll check is the hospital birth record, the payment trail, the names, everything. You'll answer for your part in kidnapping a newborn. The man froze. Henry crossed his arms. Leave, now, and don't return. For a moment, it looked like the man might fight back. Then 2 more guards stepped beside Henry, tall and silent. The man raised his hands slowly. This isn't over, he hissed. You'll hear from us. Good, Henry replied, because now I have lawyers and police on speed dial. The man backed away. His group retreated. The van reversed violently, tires screeching again as it disappeared into the night. When silence finally settled, it felt heavy, like the quiet after a storm. The guards secured the gate. The twins and Auntie Grace followed Henry back into the living room. Sandra collapsed onto the couch. Her entire body shook. Sam sat beside her, pulling her into a hug. I'm here now, he whispered. I'm not leaving again. Sandra cried into his shoulder. Henry watched them, his chest full, his eyes soft. My children, he whispered again, almost like a prayer. He sat in front of them. What those people said. About money. About ownership, Henry said, voice thick. None of that is your fault. You did nothing wrong. You were children, victims. And from this moment on, neither of you will ever live in fear again. Sam nodded slowly. Sandra wiped her tears. Auntie Grace stepped forward and handed Sandra the envelope again. The letter, she said softly. From Monica. Sandra stared at it, fingers trembling. Henry whispered, Read it, my dear. We all need to hear her voice. With shaking hands, Sandra opened it. Her mother's handwriting flowed across the page. Sandra began reading aloud, voice breaking. My sweet children, if you are reading this, it means my time has passed. But I want you to know something before anything else. You were loved. Both of you. From the first breath I took with you, I never hated your father. I believed he would come if he knew. I believed one day you would find each other and find him, and if that day has come, hold each other close. Don't let anger guide you. Let love rewrite your story where life tried to erase it. Your mother, Monica. By the time Sandra finished, no one in the room could hold back tears. Henry covered his face, shoulders shaking. Sam held Sandra tighter. Auntie Grace whispered a soft prayer. Sandra folded the letter close to her heart. Mom, we found each other, she said quietly. We did it. Henry took both twins' hands in his. From today, he said, voice steady with new strength, you are my priority, my family, my beginning again. Sam smiled through tears. Sandra nodded. Her voice small but sure, we're not broken anymore. But outside, unseen in the darkness, the black van lingered at the corner of the street, its engine still running, watching the mansion from a distance. Because the people who once took Sam were not done. Not yet. Morning sunlight slipped gently through the curtains of Henry's mansion, warming the living room where Sandra sat quietly with her mother's letter pressed against her heart. The storm of the previous night had passed, but the heaviness of everything she'd learned still lingered inside her like a weight she could not yet name. Sam slept upstairs for the first time in a real bed. Auntie Grace rested in the guest room, and Henry moved through the house with new purpose, like a man who had spent 19 years asleep and had finally opened his eyes. For Sandra, everything felt unreal. Yesterday she was a homeless girl under a bridge. Today she had a father, a brother, a home, and a mother's blessing she never thought she would get. But Sandra was not someone who ran from difficult things. Her mother had taught her one truth repeatedly, even in their worst moments. We don't choose pain, my child, but we choose who we become after it. That morning, as she stood in front of Monica's framed photo, she whispered, Mama, I won't waste the life you gave me, I promise. Over the next month, Henry threw himself into rebuilding what he had lost. He hired lawyers to investigate the family that took Sam. He put together a team to trace every detail of Monica's last years. He strengthened security at home, and most importantly, he became the father he had always wanted to be. Every night, he sat with the twins at dinner. Every morning, he checked on them like they were newborns. It made Sandra laugh softly sometimes, how a billionaire who once closed himself away from the world now hovered around her and Sam like a worried bird. One evening at the dining table, Henry finally asked, "Sandra, what do you want to do with your life?" "Anything. Tell me." Sandra looked down at her hands. "Mama wanted me to study medicine," she whispered. "She used to say I had healing hands, and I want to help people like her, people who are poor and scared and sick, but have no one to help them." Henry nodded slowly, eyes misting. "Then you will study medicine," he said firmly, "at the University of Nigeria, starting next semester." Sandra's breath caught. "Me? Medicine?" "But no but," Henry said, a small smile forming. "Your mother's dream did not die. It only waited for you." And with that, Sandra's journey truly began. University life was not easy. Sandra spent long nights reading under bright lamps. She studied cadavers with shaking hands the first time. She cried silently in the hallway after her first anatomy exam. She failed a quiz once and nearly gave up. But every time she felt weak, she remembered her mother's last words. "Let love rewrite your story." Sam called her every night. Henry visited campus with food she didn't ask for. Auntie Grace prayed for her every morning. Slowly, Sandra grew into herself. She became bold in class, gentle with patients during clinicals, respected among her peers, trusted by lecturers. 5 years later, when she walked across the graduation stage as best medical student, the auditorium erupted. Henry stood in the front row, tears running freely, clapping like the proudest father in the world. Sam shouted her name with joy. Auntie Grace cried into her wrapper, and Sandra, dressed in her green gown, cap tilted over her braid, looked at the crowd and whispered in her heart, "Mama, your little girl did it." Sandra didn't want to stop at just being a doctor. She had seen too many people die in hospitals because they couldn't afford surgery. She had seen mothers cry beside children who needed medications they could never buy. She had seen fathers sell everything they owned just to give their family a chance to live. She wanted to change that. One night, Sandra visited her mother's old grave, a simple stone surrounded by wild grass. She knelt down, placed her hand on the stone, and said, "Mama, I want to build something in your name. A home for people who have no one. A place where no mother dies because of money. A place where pain meets hope." Henry helped. Sam helped. Auntie Grace helped. They bought land. They hired architects. They found sponsors. Sandra gave her savings from part-time jobs. Henry funded the rest without blinking, and Sam was there to monitor the construction while also studying software engineering. A year later, Monica Okafor Foundation opened its doors, a shining white building with green gardens, a medical wing with free surgery programs, a shelter for homeless families, scholarship programs for poor students, outreach teams for rural communities. Hundreds of lives changed in the first year alone. Doctors volunteered, students applied for free medical scholarships. Mothers held their children again after surgeries Sandra personally supervised. Sam graduated as a software engineer and contributed financially to Monica Foundation. One evening, as the sun set behind the building, Sandra stood on the balcony overlooking the courtyard. Children ran across the grass. A woman hugged a recovering father. Nurses laughed in the hallway. A large banner read, "Healing Hope, Healing Hearts." Sandra closed her eyes, tears slipping down her cheeks. "Mama," she whispered to the wind, "I finally made it happen. Your dream lives. I hope you are happy with your little girl now." The breeze touched her face softly, like a gentle answer. Then a shadow moved behind her. Soft footsteps approached. Sandra turned and froze. A familiar face stood there. Someone she hadn't seen since the night the black van disappeared. Someone whose sudden return would change everything again. What is your view about this story? Where are you watching from? If you enjoyed this story, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.